So let's talk about something that's a huge headache for pretty much every global company today, trying to lead a team through constant chaotic change. In a world where mergers happen overnight and new markets pop up constantly, how in the world do you get your people in Berlin, Bangalore, and Boston all pulling in the exact same direction? Let's dive in. And that's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? This goes so much deeper than just figuring out logistics or payroll. We're talking about culture, strategy, and some really deep human psychology. How do you actually take talented people from totally different countries with different ways of working and forge them into one solid team? A team that doesn't just put up with change, but actually gets stronger because of it.
All right, so here's our game plan for tackling this. First, we'll get a handle on the crazy reality of today's business world. Then we'll open up the playbook for managing a global team. After that, we're going to hit the biggest hurdle of all, the people side of change. We'll watch it all come together in a case study, and then, finally, we'll boil it all down to the absolute keys for success.
So, let's set the stage. If your company is just sitting around waiting for things to calm down or get back to normal, you're already playing catch up because that whole idea of a stable, predictable business environment, yeah, that's officially a thing of the past. The new normal is something our source material calls permanent instability. And you can feel it, right? Globalization links us all together, which is great. But it also means you're competing with everyone, everywhere. Technology is giving us amazing tools, but it's also wiping out entire industries in the blink of an eye. And the battle to find and keep great people, it's a full-on global war for talent. In this kind of world, old, rigid ways of doing things don't just hold you back, they can actually sink the ship. Okay, so if the ground is always shifting beneath your feet, how are you supposed to manage your single most important resource, your people? Well, this is where we get into the strategic playbook called Global Human Resource Management. Global Human Resource Management, or GHRM for short, is not just your regular HR department with a bigger travel budget. It's a whole different ballgame. It's about strategically lining up everything, hiring, training, pay, promotions, so it all serves your big global goals. But, and this is the really tricky part, you have to do it while respecting all the local laws, cultures, and ways of life. It is an incredible tightrope walk. So every global HR leader is caught in this massive tug of war. On one side, you've got this outside-in pressure. You have to adapt to the local environment. Think about German labor laws or the business etiquette in Japan. You just can't ignore them. But on the other side, there's the inside-out view. This says your real power, your competitive edge, comes from what makes your company you, your unique culture, your specific talent. The magic of great GHRM isn't about picking a side. It's about learning to thrive in that tension right in the middle. So how does this actually play out? One of the first huge calls you have to make is who's running the show in your new locations. You've got three main options. The ethnocentric approach is to send your leaders from headquarters to manage everything. The upside? You keep your corporate culture tight. The downside? It can feel a bit colonial, and you might get some pushback. Then there's the polycentric model, where you hire local managers to lead. They'll know the culture inside and out, but you risk creating these little islands that aren't connected to the mothership. And finally, you have the geocentric model. Just find the absolute best person for the job, no matter where they're from. This is the dream, right? A true global mindset. But man, is it complex to manage? Okay, so we've got our global strategy, we've picked our staffing model, we're all set, right? Everything should go perfectly from here. Well, not so fast. This is where we run smack into the biggest wall of all, people. Because the most brilliant strategy on paper is completely worthless if your employees don't buy into it. Seriously, just look at this number for a second. 70%. That's the estimated failure rate for big organizational change projects. And it's not because the new software was buggy or the business plan was flawed. Nope. They fail because of us, because of human factors. Fear, confusion, resistance. This is the real challenge we have to solve. And you gotta understand, this isn't just about people being stubborn. It's a completely natural human reaction. The second you announce a big merger or a new system, people's minds start racing. Wait, is my job safe? Am I gonna look stupid trying to learn this new thing? Is this new boss from halfway across the world gonna value what I do? These are real deep fears, and if you don't tackle them head on, your whole plan is dead in the water. So how do you manage such a messy human process? Well, there's a classic model from a psychologist named Kurt Lewin that gives us a super helpful way to think about it. He breaks it down into 3 stages. First, you have to unfreeze the old way of doing things. You have to show everyone convincingly why staying the same is no longer an option. Then, you actually introduce the change, the new tools, the new processes with tons of support and training. And finally, and this is the step everyone skips, you have to refreeze everything, making the new way the default so that people don't slowly slide back into their old comfortable habits. Theory is great, but let's see how all this stuff actually plays out in the real world, where things get messy. We're going to walk through a case study of a fictional tech company we'll call ConnectSphere to see how these two big ideas, global HR and change management, have to work together.
So here's the deal with ConnectSphere. They were a hotshot American company growing like crazy, and it was time to take over the world. So first, they bought a software company in Germany. Then they launched a big new office in Singapore. They basically just assumed their awesome American way of doing things would work everywhere. And well, you can probably guess what happened next.
And bam, the problems hit fast. Some of the best engineers from the German company started quitting. Projects were stalling. The diagnosis was crystal clear. Communication was terrible, cultures were clashing, and the German team felt like their new bosses from the US weren't listening to them at all. No one had even bothered to clearly explain the vision for the new combined company. And this is where the light bulb went off for the leadership team. They realized this wasn't just a staffing issue, and it wasn't just a change management issue. It was both, all tangled up together. So they came up with a two-pronged attack. They decided to shift to a true geocentric model, promoting the best leaders from both the US and Germany, and they paired that with a very deliberate, structured change management plan. Instead of just ordering people to change, they followed a proven roadmap. They started by forming a leadership team with managers from both countries, so everyone felt represented. They didn't just email out the new vision, they talked about it, debated it, and answered every single question. Crucially, they invested real money in cross-cultural training to help people understand each other. And they built momentum by finding small projects where the teams could work together and score some quick early wins. The ConnectSphere story is a perfect example of what works. So, let's boil all of this down into a practical blueprint that you can actually use. These are the absolute essential practices for leading global change without it all falling apart. All right, so what are the big takeaways here? What should you be focusing on? First, your people strategy can't be an afterthought. It has to be welded to your main business goals. Second, leadership is not one size fits all. You have to train your managers how to lead people from different cultures. Next, stop guessing. Use HR tech and data to actually understand what's happening with your workforce. Also, trust is everything, which means you have to be transparent. And finally, remember that communication is not a memo. It has to be a constant, honest, two-way conversation. You know, there's a quote from our source material that just hits the nail on the head. We've got to stop thinking of change as this big, one-time thing, like the big reorganization. In a global business, being able to adapt has to be part of your company's DNA. It's a constant, non-stop process of learning and evolving every single day. And that really brings us to the final big question, a question for you to take back to your own team. Take an honest look at your company, its structure, its culture, its leaders. Is it still fundamentally built to operate in just one country with its home country's mindset? Or is it truly, genuinely built to thrive all over the world? Honestly, the answer to that question is going to decide its future. And that's a wrap on our look at leading global change. Hey, if this helps you think differently about your own team or organization, do me a favor and hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe for more deep dives like this one. Thanks so much for watching.